I don't consider myself He-Man or particularly strong, but really this isn't too bad to sort of look at this. Not bad at all. And I'm just going to go ahead and try to line this up close to where the existing plumbing is. See how we look. That's really close. Now your locale may have different requirements. Again, I mentioned before I want to have this up on cinder blocks. I like to get it off the floor. This basement's, I'm gonna say it's really, really dry, especially right here. It never has any issues with water getting in. However, if your basement's damp, or if you're like me and you like to just take the garden hose to the basement every 6 months, a year or so, I prefer to have it up in the air. It also makes that drain a lot easier to get at. I know they make stands for this purpose. I know there's different methods of doing it. I don't have a block in the middle. That's how the old one was set up. Our old house had a similar setup. And the very middle of that's hollow. There's nothing under the middle anyway. I believe the tank puts its pressure down around the edges. Now there's probably about 600 pounds there. 150 for the water heater, 50 gallons of water, 8 pounds. That's about 650. And you know, as far as the cinder blocks and the weight go, you know, it's good enough for my car in the front yard. It's good enough for my water heater. And just remember, in some locations, they tell you to, you got to strap it to the wall in case you live in an area that's prone to earthquakes. We're not prone to those type of earthquakes here, and it's not code to strap it to the wall. So, I mean, it's not going to get scared and jump off there. So, we're going to go ahead and roll with it. I did level the blocks a little bit. I mean, if I sit there and move it, it'll rock a little bit, but once you get water in there, that ought to take care of that problem. So we're going to go ahead and start making our connections. Okay, I got the old pipes into position, and I got them pretty close anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse these unions. I'm going to make a solid connection. There's other ways to do this, but I bought the flexible connector kit. I'd have to sweat new adapters on here, and you know, I'm just gonna go back solid. So here's what I'm gonna do. I know I could have went out and bought new parts for my unions there, but those things are not cheap. And I believe, God, I think at one of the big box stores, some were made in America. I think they were like almost 15 bucks a piece. So there's nothing wrong with these. They're old, but they ought to work. So we're going to desolder them and reuse them. And desoldering is pretty easy. Basically just involves heating up the fitting. She's off. This pipe here, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I might keep it or use it for something, I don't know. But as you can see for, well, maybe you can't, the camera won't focus. But for 35-year-old pipes, they seem to be okay. Okay, now I'm preparing the pipe to solder on the piece of the old union. So basically here I'm reaming the inside of the pipe to remove any burrs. And I believe that will help. It does something, creates like an eddy in the water, and it creates corrosion or something like that. I'm sure someone will correct me, but basically, I use this tool here, ream the inside, go to the other side, ream the outside. Now in some of my other videos I did this step with sandpaper, but that's because I couldn't find my little gadget here. This is for 3/4 inch pipe. Put it over the pipe. This is much quicker, and I think it works better than the sandpaper. The key to soldering pipe is preparation. Okay. The damp paper towel there. Okay. Here's the old union. Again, it's 35 years old, but I think it's fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean the inside of that out. And my experience with soldering, and again, I'm not a plumber, I'm not an expert. If you get everything perfectly clean and you use plenty of flux, you won't have one leak. I've had one or two leak on me from the ones I've done, and it generally is because I didn't prep it properly. I got in a hurry trying to prep it. So let me see if I could slide this old union on that pipe, which I'm not going to be able to because of the old solder in there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to heat up the inside of this old union here. You can see it on the camera if the solder is starting to melt. Okay, she's on there. Okay, go ahead and solder it. You don't need much solder, about an inch of that. I always put way too much solder on there. Most people probably do. Okay. You ought to have gloves on when you do this, but... And I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off for neatness. And that should be good. We're going to let her cool off. Okay. I got the hot water pipe. I got that installed. Everything's soldered. I did all the soldering on the bench. You never want to solder with the pipe connected to that nipple. And then I have my union tightened up here. You know, I'd really recommend using the hoses, the flexible connections. I mean, you can get a SharkBite fitting and it'll just slide right on there. It'd be a hell of a lot easier, but I don't know. Just decided to do it this way. These here are heat traps. You don't want to remove those inserts. And you don't want anything in a bind. You want everything to line up nicely. Now I was able to come straight down because this matched up to the old water heater. It's pretty much the same. The spacing on the inlet and outlet are the same. But I'm going to go ahead and solder the cold water supply pipe. I've already measured it and dry fit it, and it should be good to go. Something you want to remember when you're soldering a pipe, or any if you're, whether you're soldering it or screwing it together, whatever you're doing, if there's a union, you want to make sure you put your nut on there. You wouldn't believe how many times I forgot to do that. It's easy to do. So, same procedure. Bring it. Clean it. This is so much quicker than using the sandpaper. Seems to do a better job too. Okay, here's the new adapter. Looks pretty good. Again, my whole thing with the flux, it's been my experience, the more the merrier. I believe I've soldered with leaded solder before. This is all lead free I'm using now. I seem to remember it being a bit easier. But I'm going to look in the pipe here. I'm going to make sure that everything's bottomed out. Make sure it is where it needs to be. When you see the flux start to bubble out, that's when you're close. See you throwing the solder in there? Again, all you need is about an inch. That should do it. You don't have to wipe it off, but it gives a neater appearance to the work. Again, this pipe's very hot. Now before I do anything with this, I need to let it sit here and cool for a little while. Probably, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. While I'm waiting for that pipe to cool off, I'm going to go ahead and put some Teflon tape on this fitting. Again, the blue insert, that's a heat trap. You don't want to remove that. Now the pipe's going to be turning on this way. So you want to go opposite with your tape. It's a little tricky because it's recessed. Now, some locations, I don't know, maybe National Plumbing Code. I don't think National Plumbing Code requires dielectric unions. The water heater manufacturer recommends them because it'd be easier to remove in the future. But if I'm the one that gets to take this apart, I'll just cut the pipe, because it was going to be very hard to get the old pipe off of the old water heater. I got my tape on there, and that'll just seal any irregularities in between the adapter surfaces and the threads on the water heater. Okay, the solder on this pipe here is cooled off, so I'm going to go ahead and thread it on. Just thread it on by hand, and then I'm going to get the pipe wrench. And snug it up. You don't have to go too crazy on this, you don't want to break the nipple off. It's starting to get tight. That's one more little snug. There we go. See how that does. Let's put the pipe on there. Again, you don't. I had to move that a little bit, but you don't want to have to go crazy on it to get that to make a good connection. Raise the other wrench. Especially on soldered joints, you always want to make sure that you hold that really good. You don't want to twist off one of the other. You don't want to damage one of the other solder joints. I like to make these pretty tight. One way to make sure I'm not twisting anything is I put the wrenches like this, and I pull the two wrenches together. I'm going to give that a little bit more. I'm going to put water to it. Alright.